Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Big Man, Big Problems podcast. My name is Julio, and I welcome you. I am flying solo today, and I'm going against a little bit of the norm. I've watched quite a few videos on how to start a podcast, and a lot of them warn you about a get to know you type episode. And I watch the videos because reading puts me to sleep. So reading about those things doesn't work for me, but thank goodness there's YouTube and I can watch videos. So I thought I would answer a few questions about who I am, what this podcast is all about and its intention and, who I'm trying to reach and that type of thing. So who am I? Again, my name is Julio. I am a 56-year-old, first generation Cuban American. My parents immigrated in the early 60s. Born and raised in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs my entire life. And it's been a roller coaster since then. I'm married. I've been married as of this weekend, 33 years to my lovely wife, Deanna. I have two beautiful adult daughters who remind me every day that I have to have women on the show because even though it's called Big Man, Big Problems, big women have issues too. So realistically, everything I say here and everything I talk about does apply to both genders. Unfortunately, I really only have the perspective of myself as a man. So I do have a couple of female friends who have volunteered to come on this program with me, and we'll discuss both genders and the issues that go with that. So, what is this podcast all about, really? Because we had a little bit of an intro on the first episode talking about a few of the struggles and how I deal with them. We had an episode where I talked about or talked with my trainer that helped me when I got home from the TV show, The Biggest Loser. And I said right in the beginning that this is not, nor is it going to be a podcast about weight loss. And I haven't changed that. That doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about weight loss. The central focus is not weight loss. But many people, when they're big people, obviously the idea of weight loss is a big deal to them, and there's a lot of struggles that come with that. And what there isn't is a lot of people to talk about those struggles who've been through it. So that is my central focus is how to handle life as a bigger person, whether you're deciding to stay as a big person or whether you're on a journey to not be a big person. I am certainly somebody who has been through all of the above and can speak with a level of experience as to what to go through. I have been blessed through my Caribbean born mother with an ability to understand situations and understand people. So it allows me to really put myself in somebody's shoes and feel what they're feeling in a sense, to be able to speak to them in a way that makes sense to them. So who am I trying to reach? So who I'm trying to reach is specifically those people, people who are regardless of age. I'm 56 years old, so I've obviously gone through a lot of years. The 80s were my decade. Being a big person was not as acceptable in the 80s. I'm not sure it's terribly acceptable now, considering my experiences. Um, I've lived through the 90s. I've lived through the early 2000s with skinny jeans. So I've gone through a lot, but certainly everything I'm talking about, I have experienced as a teenager. I've experienced as a 20-year-old and a young father, and I've experienced as a middle-aged, I suppose, adult. So everybody is within the purview. Certainly people who are those who are 50, 100 pounds overweight. And once you go over 100 pounds, really life changes dramatically for folks like us. And there's a lot of parts of the world that are cut off to you. And that could be something that we really, really struggle with, and something that we really don't share with our family and friends. I think a lot of them understand. I think a lot of them like see it, but we don't talk about it either through embarrassment or judgment, whatever it is. So the big question is what got me here? What put me in front of a microphone and decided to start doing this? So let me give you a little history of my life to show you what I've gone through. And I'm certainly not going to go through every experience I've had that was tough on me because of my size, but I'll touch on a few. So I was a chubby kid. I wouldn't say an obese kid, but I was certainly a chubby kid. And that was all through middle school, certainly all through high school. My senior year of high school into the 3rd semester, my father basically had enough and signed me up for a medical weight loss clinic. I would think about 50 to 70 pounds overweight at that time. And throughout a period of about 4 or 5 months, I managed to lose nearly 80 pounds. I got down to a size 32 waist. So if anybody out there can imagine at this point in their life being a 32 waist, I was a 32 waist and a 42 shoulder. And I was just graduating high school. I was going to go away to college. Um, and I found myself in very unfamiliar territory. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't know who I was. And if anybody out there has ever lost a great deal of weight, that's something we could talk about because that's a real thing. I mean, you talk about body dysmorphia on people who are heavy. You talk about looking one way in the mirror and then another way in pictures. I was surprised at the amount of attention that I was getting because it's attention that I never got before, and I don't really know that I knew how to handle it. So, a good friend of mine and I were actually working at a local festival or fest, as we call them here in Chicago. And we were scooping Italian lemonade, and we were next to another stand, the Mexican restaurant. And the gentleman who owned the restaurant and I were conversing all day, drinking really, but we were conversing all day. And his wife showed up and she said, "I'd like you to meet this nice Cuban boy I've been talking to all day." And she looked at me and just lit up and fell in love. Well, she turned out to be quite a prominent modeling and talent agent in Chicago. And she scooped me up and she had me take headshots and all this kind of stuff. Well, she also happened to have a very beautiful teenage daughter who I started to date that summer. So that never went anywhere. And then I went away to college for a year and that broke apart and life went on. And then a couple of years after that, uh, before I turned 21, I met my now wife. And we started spending a lot of time together. And a year to the date that I met her, I had gained 100 pounds. I still don't fully understand how that happened or what I did or what I ate differently because I don't feel like I did anything differently. Who knows? Maybe it was just love. But I was 100 pounds heavier than I was before I started the diet. Um, anyway, we got married. We bought a home, started to have children. And I remember vividly hearing, one of my siblings' wives talking to someone else saying, "Well, don't worry. Once he have kids, he'll know the responsibility and he'll start to lose weight." Well, lo and behold, that didn't happen, and I gained another 100 pounds as a father. And that went on for a number of years. Um, in 2009, I was watching the television and an ad came on to audition for The Biggest Loser, which I've been told by many people I should audition for at that time because it was a big show at the time. And I thought, how do you get on this show? I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have to audition. You have to know somebody, whatever. So my wife came home. And I said, "They're auditioning Saturday morning. Should I?" And she goes, "Of course you should go." So I went, I auditioned, and they picked me immediately. So somehow I was blessed with that and spent the next 7 to 8 months in that entire process. Tony and I, my trainer, chronicled some of that experience. And I started at 407. 6.5 months later, after starting the show, I was at 227. I had lost 180 pounds. It was amazing. Once again, I found myself in very unfamiliar territory. I started getting a lot of attention that I didn't know what to do with. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I actually grew facial hair. I never had facial hair in my entire life. My wife never liked it, still doesn't like it. But it helped me to recognize myself because the person in the mirror wasn't me. And well, when I got to the finale, the show liked it. Dr. Huizinga and his staff loved it. And my mom really liked it. She said it made me look more manly. And well, who doesn't do what their mother wants? So I decided to keep it. So the next year and a half after the finale found me doing quite a bit. I done several triathlons. I became very active. I was running 5Ks, some of which, they wanted me to sponsor and do. I was doing 10Ks, mud runs. I mean, I was extremely active. For that year and a half, I was eating better than anybody that I knew. I certainly wasn't perfect. I wasn't on my Biggest Loser diet, but I was eating very healthfully. I mean, oatmeal was my preferred breakfast. I was exercising at a fairly high level, especially training for the races and whatnot. And um, I think I left my personal trainer for maybe 3 months in that year and a half period. So a year and a half later, I'm on the phone with Dr. Huizinga and his staff because he was forming a reunion in Los Angeles at his home. I think it was in Beverly Hills to do some testing, which I'll talk about a little bit later. That's made a lot of news lately, testing that we did at the National Institute of Health. But he was testing a lot of people at that time. So I was on the phone and I told him, Dr. Huizinga, I have trained for races. I run a lot of races. I'm eating very, very well. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I have my good days and my bad days, but I'm certainly eating very, very well. Uh, and I'm not complaining because I haven't lost any more weight since the finale. I would just like you to tell me why or how I managed to gain 75 pounds in this process. And I would tell you his answer, but it was awful. Um, we found out a few years later when we finished the testing at the National Institute of Health that there's metabolic reasons why that happens. They're trying to deny all that now. And when I have some of my Biggest Loser friends on here that were part of the study with me, I'll talk to you about it. But it has been challenging to say the least. And there has been, until this study, no real explanation of why, even though I was leading a healthy, active lifestyle, that I was gaining weight as if I was laying on the couch eating pizza for 3 meals a day. It didn't make any sense. Makes more sense to me now. Doesn't make the struggle any less, but that's what's there. So, fast forward. For the last 10 years, I have been struggling with some mobility issues because the standing too long or walking too long has caused me some pain in my leg and some numbness in my leg. And if I stand or walk too long, my leg got numb, and once or twice it just gave out on me. And for the last 10 years, the doctors were blaming that mostly on my weight. I actually went to a couple of doctors. They didn't even examine me or offer any testing. They just said, you need to lose weight. Your weight's the problem. It's putting too much pressure on your back. So at the end of this spring, the pain got so bad that it was just debilitating. And I ended up going to a spine doctor at the bequest of my doctor, who's a wonderful doctor. I ended up going to a spine doctor. He had an MRI done. And as it turns out, I have a neurofibroma the size of my hand laying on my lower lumbar. that has been there for I don't know how many decades. And I asked the doctors, it's by the way completely benign. There's no threat of cancer, thank goodness. Um, so I don't have to worry about that. But I still have the issue with the pain in my leg and the lack of mobility, and may be able to explain some of the lack of mobility for me for the last decade or so. So I asked them directly, does any of this have anything to do with my weight? And they said, 100% no. I said, what causes it? They said, well, bad luck. Bad luck causes it. So there's not a lot they can do, unfortunately. It's not going to kill me, but it is going to hamper me from being much more physically active at this point till we could figure out how to remedy it. It's intertwined in some nerves, and operating on it is very dangerous. So that's something I'm working on. And I got angry. I got angry because this is something that should have been caught 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but they didn't bother because of my size. They didn't test any further, ask any more questions, examine any deeper because they just assumed. And then finally, I went to a prominent, prominent spinal surgeon in the Chicagoland area. And, we have some of the best. And there was an operation that may be able to alleviate some of the pressure, but he says, well, he actually told me that they would give him a hard time about doing it. And I said, why? He said, well, there is a certain table that we put a back patient on, a spinal patient. And quite frankly, you're just not going to fit on a table. And I thought to myself, this is 2025. They can't figure out how to put me on a table to operate my spine. And I said, doctor, it sounds like you don't want to do it. He goes, I'll do it. He says, I might regret it, but I'll do it. And I said, great. And then I went on to other doctors, and I have another doctor now who's wonderful. Didn't disagree with the difficulties of doing surgery on somebody my size because there's other factors that come into play. But he said, otherwise, you're very, very healthy, which I've always been blessed to be. And he thinks we could do it. So he'd like me to lose some weight. So I'm working on that now. I'll give you my progress as we go. But things are looking positive there. So all of that, plus many other things, brought me to the point where I thought, I need to talk about this. I need to get out there and have people understand that they're just not the only ones who are going through it. What are my struggles? What are my personal struggles? My personal struggle my whole life has not been that I want to run marathons or run races. My personal struggle has always been that so much of the world is really cut off to those of us who are of a particular size. Going to a restaurant and not being able to sit in a booth, going to an amusement park and knowing that you really can't ride the rides. Certain parts of life are cut off to you. Even now in my medical situation, had I not been this person, this wouldn't have been a problem. Well, it's a problem, but it wouldn't have been quite the problem that it is today. My size has hindered it quite a bit. So, what are the problems when it comes to weight loss when you become somebody my size? The problems are physical, they're emotional, they are, well, let's just call it what it is. Obesity is a disease, and it's a disease you're going to carry with you no matter how long you live. No different than being an alcoholic or being a gambling addict or any other addiction you can have. Once you get rid of that, you're always gonna have that. You're always gonna be that. Now for me, because I have been up and down that mountain several times, there's issues with my metabolism, there's issues with my insulin levels, that make losing weight a real struggle regardless of what plan somebody throws in front of me or suggests to me. And those are in future podcasts we can discuss individually. I don't want to get into them all now because otherwise this is a podcast and that's a lot and it can be its own subject. But let's get into a little bit of the emotional issues. Food is our teddy bear. It's our pacifier, right? It is our bottle of vodka. It is our needle. It is our adrenaline. It is what drives us. And unless you're in the throes of that, if you have somebody or know somebody who was ever in the throes of addiction, whether it's uh, alcohol, whether it's drugs, it's hard to understand why they just don't stop. They see their life falling apart. They see the struggle they're going through, can't keep a job, whatever. And you say to them endlessly, just stop. But they don't. Everything else is more important. It's really no different for those of us who struggle with food addiction. It's hard to sit on the couch knowing that there's leftover pizza in the refrigerator. Everybody out there who understands that knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, what is the biggest difference between this addiction and any of those addictions? The biggest difference is this: those addictions, you can just stop. You don't ever have to drink alcohol again to live. You don't ever have to put a needle in your arm again to live. You don't ever have to bet on sports again in order to live. So you can give those up, find a different hobby, take that somewhere else. When it comes to food addiction, when you go on a diet, food now becomes even more a central focus in your life than it was before. Before it was easy. Now you have to shop, think, count, meal prep, all of these things. You have to be faced with your biggest addiction every moment of every day and somehow still feel hungry. The best example I can give you, it's as if the cure for alcoholism would be you go to a bar for your AA meeting, they hand you a 30-ounce bottle of vodka and tell you you can only drink 1 ounce per day because once it runs out, there's no more. How many alcoholics are going to make it 30 days with that? None. And that is the biggest difference. So I guess what I'm saying to everyone out there is you are not alone. There are other people like you, and there are other people who are willing to talk about it. I'm willing to talk about it. I've been through it. If you've experienced it, I've been through it. So if you ask me a question, if you give me a suggestion or make a comment, I'm able to talk about it, even to all those people out there who are haters on this subject, who somehow feel that discriminating against a heavy person is acceptable in today's world, as if we're different than other people, like we're freaks, like it's a choice. Everything in life is a choice. And if I had my choice, I certainly wouldn't go through the difficulties of being a big person if I was able to do that. So we're all in this together. That's why I started this podcast. I want to speak to everyone. I want to listen to everyone. And yeah, I want to talk to those people who are maybe not agreeing with what I have to say, and let's discuss it. Maybe I'm wrong on something. I mean, I won't admit it. There is a placard on my desk at work that says, just admit I'm right. It'll save us time. So, that being said, if it's reasonable, I will listen to it. So, I have a mantra that I live by, so much so that I actually tattooed it to my leg. I didn't want to do a tattoo that had anything to do with my experience on the TV show. And that's a whole nother podcast talking about the experience in that TV show and experience with the people that I've seen and met and dealt with. And basically, it's a zero being squeezed into an eight because my season on the show was season eight, tied into a zero with the tape measure. But the saying on it is what's important. And it says, fall 7 times, stand up eight. Because that is not only the journey through weight loss, but that's the journey through life. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get knocked down lots of times. So what's the trick? The trick is that you stand up one more time than you sat down, because that's how you win. Okay. And I love, as you know, to use my baseball metaphors because I think baseball is life. The game of baseball is life. Unfortunately, I'm 56, so right now I'm entering playoff season, but the game of baseball is life. And what's so amazing about baseball is here you have a team sport. But is it a team sport? Because you play as an individual. Unlike football. Football, you got 11 guys in the field, and everybody has to do their job for any one other person to be able to get through theirs. But in baseball, you stand at the plate alone. You stand at center field alone, but it's played by a team. So life, we're alone. There's just us. The team is here for support. The team is here to back you up. The team is here to pick you up when you are down. So I'm your team of this particular baseball game. And to get back to the baseball analogy, as long as my tattoo, it says again, ball 7 times, stand up 8. You go up to the plate in the first inning, you strike out. You go up to the plate in the second inning or the third inning or the fourth inning, and you have bases loaded, you're down by one, and you pop one up to the shortstop and you sit down. But they keep letting you get back up to the plate. And every time you get back up to the plate, you have the same chance, the same opportunity. But now this time you're down by 2. You have 2 men on, and now you hit it out of the park. You won. You won because you stood up one more time than you sat down. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight of who I am, of what I'm all about, what has brought me here, a basic understanding of what I understand about being a big person and going that way. So I encourage everyone to subscribe or like if you're watching this on YouTube. Uh, Please go to my Facebook page and you could follow me there. Go to my Instagram and you could follow me there. You can message me any questions through Facebook or through Spotify. Again, it's Big Man, Big Problem Podcast. I hope you appreciate if you're watching this video on YouTube. I hope you appreciate the new surroundings, the new banner I post for it. And I thank you for listening. And I thank you for being part of my journey. And I really want to be part of yours. Thank you again and bless everyone.